Hi everyone. So I spent quite a bit of time this weekend working on a video, and I've actually uploaded it. It's currently set to private. I'm just not sure if I'm going to turn it loose. There's some things in there that people might take offense to, and I'm not really that interested in offending people. Not that I would mind offending people if I thought that the cause was just and the argument was well reasoned, but I don't think this video is quite that laudable. I'm going to review it again, and I'll decide whether or not to set it to public. I guess you'll figure it out either way. The thing I wanted to discuss today, however, is something I've noticed all along, but specifically the particular videos I was watching over the weekend, while sort of perusing the tubes. And one is this whole subject of atheist versus theist morality, and sort of the objective versus subjective. So, of course, naturally, any theist is going to suggest that atheists can only have morals that are subject to their own will, their own ideas, their own likes and dislikes, and they'll say that they have an objective standard for morality. And I think you could actually argue for the inverse. Certainly when it comes to laws of logic, Sye Ten Bully, for instance, will say that, when asked if God is subject to the laws of logic, he'll start to do this little dance. Well, he say, well, no, he's not subject to them. It's part of his nature. And I've actually heard him even admit that God did not invent the laws of logic. They're not part of his construct. They're part of reality. But he doesn't really want to say that he's subject to them. They're part of his nature. So I think that, they're not interested in sort of having him be subservient to anything. But certainly when it comes to morality, I think it's a little different, because they will also admit that something is moral or immoral depending on how it reflects upon God's nature. And so sin is wrong because God's not a sinner. Right? And so this is more subjective. It's not a property of existence. It's not a property of reality. It's basically subject to the whim or the nature of God. And so he'll say, for instance, theft is wrong because God is not a thief. Not because it's some arbitrary law that God has, or certainly not because of any kind of a value judgment on the poor person being stolen from. We've removed him from the equation, right? No, but because God's not a thief. And so this would make those morals, really those standards are subjective. They're subject to the mind of God. They're not a property of existence. And they're not objective in that sense. I do find kind of cute, too, this whole concept of theft with regards to God. Because Sye says, theft is wrong because God is not a thief. I would like to know, who would God steal from? If he's sort of created everything, created the universe, created everything in it, all the people in it, how could he steal from everything? He sort of has ownership over everything, right? And so it's not that God isn't a thief. God can't steal, right? And furthermore, actually, on the flip side, if you consider, say, kidnapping is kind of theft, right? I mean, you're stealing someone. What would an eternity in hell equate if not theft? People held against their will for an eternity. That's grand theft, human, right? So anyway, just a couple of funny points there. The other thing that I wanted to discuss is the misframing or reframing of arguments by people like Sye Ten Bully specifically. And this is something that I find wholly dishonest, and I think it's a real problem, actually. And so, by example, I was listening, I should say, to a podcast with Justin Schieber and Sye Ten Bully, a little debate they had, and I'll link that below. You can find it on Sye's website as well. And throughout that entire debate, every time Justin would make a point, Sye would reiterate to him, but he would reframe his point. And he would always do it in a disingenuous manner. And I think this is obviously a real problem. This is, again, why I don't advocate debating this guy. Because what he'll do is he'll do that, and if you don't catch it, then what he does is he runs back to the Wingnut Show or sits down with Eric Hovind on Creation Today and talks about all the crazy things these atheists say. Right? He's constructed these wonderful straw men for himself to utilize at a later date. Now, to Justin's credit, for the most part, he actually caught those, and he would stop everything and say, no, wait a minute, I don't want you to, make false equivocations here, and he would actually clarify his argument. So good on him for doing that. But again, this is a real dishonest tactic that gets under my skin. And another example of that is actually in a little clip that you can find on the net with Vanessa and Sye Ten Bully and Kate, and I think it was at the that atheist monument that was erected or whatever, and Eric Hovind jumped up on it, and Sye Ten was also there, and she was talking to him. And the question of heaven and hell came up. And while they're talking, a young gentleman walks by and he says, "Are you going to heaven?" And Sye says, "Yes, I'm going to heaven." And the young guy says, "Well, I choose to go to hell because that way I won't have to spend time with guys like you in heaven." And Sye sort of retorts and says, "Well, you won't be that smug when you're there," which is ironically kind of a smug thing to say, right? And she says, "Why do you care?" And he said, "I love you." She said, "You love us?" And he said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, why'd you tell, you told him to go to hell." And Sye says, "No, I didn't." Now, she is mistaken. What he actually said is some people choose hell, and that's okay. You won't be so smug when you're there. But the correct thing to do, of course, would have been to just correct her mistake. And to say, you're recording this, I would implore you to look at the tape because, ma'am, I honestly did not say that. But what he does instead is quite interesting, and I almost think it's sort of it's a reflex on his part. He's so used to reframing people's arguments that what he does instead is he says, I think you should post that video, and I think you need to put a caption on it there. I think you need to subtitle it that this is what I said, and then everyone can see how much of a liar you are. So I'll play a little bit of that clip right here.
Right here.
What I'm saying is the Bible says we're created in the image of God. He's given us our sense and reasoning such that we can know things. But you have no basis for knowledge outside of God, man.
Why do you assume that our basis for sense and reasoning comes from God?
Man, you deny it, and your worldview is absurd. That's my point. You've denied that, and I asked you how you account for it without God.
I have said that I do not believe in a God. I have not given you a worldview.
But then I'm asking you how you make sense of truth and knowledge and reason without God.
Because I don't need a God
you're saying
to
you
fill
don't
in
need
the gaps of
I've
things
heard
that
that.
I don't know.
I've heard that.
Okay, I've
so
heard what
you're
saying.
You don't need God, so how do you make sense of truth and knowledge and reason? You don't know? You have no idea? See, that's what the Bible says. The fear of the Lord is beginning of knowledge.
If I don't understand something, therefore God. If I don't understand something, therefore God. That's what you are saying.
That you do believe in God because you make knowledge claims that you cannot justify.
Oh, I do believe in God.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thank you, man. Thanks for your time.
No. Why does this bench bother you?
It doesn't bother me.
Then why are you here?
I'm here to speak the truth because there are people here who are choosing hell.
That's it.
They're choosing to spend an eternity in hell, and I'm here to warn them, to speak the truth in love, so that someone like you doesn't have to go to hell. They can put their trust in Jesus Christ and come to know salvation, come to be saved from the destiny that we all deserve.
Wait,
I
so
deserve it too.
you're going to heaven, right?
I am, yes. And I don't
Makes
deserve
you
it.
want to go to hell, so I don't have to deal with guys
Well,
like
that's
you when I
fine.
go to
People
heaven.
go to hell choose it. That's right.
So that's.
But
So
the thing
you care or
is, you
you
won't be
don't
that
care?
smug when you're there. Pardon me?
Care or you don't care?
I care for you people. I love you people. That's why I'm
You
here.
just told him to go to hell.
I didn't do that.
Yeah, you did.
Well, it's recorded.
I have it
You
on
recorded
video.
it. That's right. Okay, well, you put the words underneath there where
No,
I
I'm
told him
putting
to
the
go to
whole
hell.
video.
Great, you
I'm not going
subtitle.
to edit anything.
Great, you subtitle where I told him to go to hell. You do that, okay? And then when people watching this video see that she's lying, think again about your worldview. Go.
So there you have it. I think he certainly could have done without, the attempt to coerce her into being dishonest and posting the video. A simple correction would have sufficed. And, her sentiment, I think, kind of got lost in the scuffle there, too. The point that she was trying to make about, sort of saying that you love these people and then responding to the young man the way that he did. And, if anyone's interested in watching or hearing Sye reframe his opponent's arguments sort of on the fly, then I would encourage you to listen to the Justin Schieber debate, because he does it pretty much throughout the entire discussion. And so, if you listen to it with that in mind, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I said at the beginning of this video that I spent a lot of the weekend working on another upload, and that video is only 15 minutes long. The reason it took so long is I got very, very frustrated and angry with myself, had lots and lots of outtakes, and it ended up taking up way too much time. But that got me thinking about a couple of uploads that I've had where I've had some mistakes. And to the delight of, in particular, Metals USA 1 and Brett Palmer, one video in particular that I didn't even mean to upload, my phone uploaded it without my consent, and another upload where I'd had some things that, some outtakes that should have been taken out, and I accidentally left them in. I had to re-edit that video, and they all thought it was really cute and funny, and so I thought, you know, maybe at some point I should do a blooper reel. So maybe stay tuned for that at some point, a capricious black box blooper reel. Thanks everyone for watching. Have a great week.